by 3, and I get 3. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite what I've got. I've got 4 times 1 over 3 times 1. All right, so rewriting it, 4 times 1 is 4, 3 times 1 is 3. And again, it's in an improper fraction, but that's totally okay. And in fact, we now want to keep it as an improper fraction. Only really in, I guess, previous and junior high and high school do they drill it in your brain that an improper fraction is not allowed, but we're saying yes, improper fractions are actually great. Okay, so number 13. Alright, so 3 over 5 times 7. Okay, so again, whole number, I'm going to stick it over 1. I'm going to rewrite it as one big happy family. And I'm going to look for any common factors on the top and the bottom. 3 does not share anything with 5 and 1. 7 doesn't share anything with 5 and 1. So I'm going to multiply across 21 over 5. Okay, improper fraction, but they don't share any common factors, so that's the simplest form. All right, number 14. So number 14, now we have 3 fractions. 5 over 9 times 2 over 7 times 7 over 5. And here's where I think, especially when you have more than 2 fractions that you're multiplying, writing it as one big happy family is really helpful. So I've got 5 times 2 times 7 over 9 times 7 times 5. All right, so top to bottom, looking for pairs that can divide evenly. 5 and 5 can be divided by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 5 divided by 5 is 1. I also see that 7 can be divided by 7, and this 7 down here can be divided by 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1. 7 divided by 7 is also 1. 2 and 9, can't do anything with that. So let's rewrite what we've got. 1 times 2 times 1. On the bottom, we've got 9 times 1 times 1. That was a horrible times. Let's redo that. Okay, so 1 times 2 times 1 is going to give us 2. 9 times 1 times 1 is 9. So our final answer is 2 ninths. All right, number 15. So I've got 4 over 7 times 2 over 15 times by 5. What is it, buddy? Okay, so whole number, stick it over 1. Then I'm going to multiply 4 times 2 times 5 over 7 times 15 times 1. All right, common factors, top to bottom. I only see the 5 and the 15 can both be divided by 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1. 15 divided by 5 is going to be 3. So now, rewriting my numbers, I've got 4 times 2 times 1. And on the bottom, I've got 7 times 3 times 1. So multiplying across, 4 times 2 times 1 is 8. Multiplying the bottom, 7 times 3 times 1 is 21. Okay, and again, it's in simplest form. 8 and 21 cannot be divided by anything further. Number 16. I've got 8 ninths times 5 over 11 times by 1 over 2. All right, so writing it is one big happy family. 9 times 11 times 2. The only things that I see share factor would be the 8 and the 2. They can be divided by 2. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So let's rewrite what we've got. Got 4 times 5 times 1 on the top, and 9 times 11 on the bottom. So on the top, 4 times 5 times 1, that's going to give me 20. And on the bottom, 9 times 11 is going to give me 99. So 20 over 99. All right, so far we haven't had any negative numbers. On number 17, now we have negative numbers. So this is what I would write on my notes, and I would add this step to the notes that we previously did. So when we were writing our notes, when it said multiplying fractions, and we had step 1, write as one big, right, dot, 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 and then we had a step 2. So now we're going to go back, and we're going to write a step 0. And the step 0 is now going to apply when you have negatives. Negatives, so step 0, figure out the sign. Figure out the sign. So I'll give you a little bit of time, go back in your notes, add that. So figure out the sign, meaning if you have negatives in the problem, figure out the sign first. Don't bring it along for the ride, just figure out, is it positive or is it negative, and then go down and do the rest of your steps. So let's go back to number 17. So number 17 is negative 6 times 7 over 2. So sometimes we're going to see an X as multiplication, sometimes we're going to see a dot, sometimes we're going to see parentheses. For all the negative problems, at least in ALEX, we're going to see a dot. So negative 6 times 7 over 2, I'm going to put this over 1. So step 0, if you have negatives in your problem, figure out whether or not it's negative or positive. A negative times a positive tells me my answer is going to be negative. So in the end, it's going to be negative. I'll just put it to the side, or where you know you're going to put your answer. So like, I know our answer is going to be somewhere down here, and I'm going to put there. At the end, it's going to be negative. Whatever it is, it's going to be negative, my final answer. So when I do the problem, so step 1, write it as one big happy family. I don't bring along the negative because that just clusters up my problem, and it's not necessary. We already figured out it's going to be negative. All right, so I'm looking for any common factors. 2 can be divided by 2. 3, or sorry, the answer's 3, but I did that by dividing by 2, so top and bottom can be divided by 2. Then I'm going to rewrite it, so I have 3 times 7 over 1 times 1. So I know that my answer is going to give me a negative 21. Okay, so we already figured out the sign first. So that's what you want to do. You have negatives involved with your problem. Step 0, figure out the sign first. So as a recap, so if you also want to write this in your notes. So as a review, okay, so step 0, figure out the sign, but how do you know what the sign is? So as a recap, even number of negatives. So if there's an even number of negatives, meaning your negative has a pair, so if you can bunch them up into pairs, it makes them happy. Okay, even number of negatives, positive answer. An odd number of negatives, meaning someone doesn't have a pair, someone's not going to be happy, so an odd number of negatives makes them sad. An odd number is negative. Okay? You could also think if you just have 2 of them, if the signs agree, positive, if they disagree, negative. So if you can pair them up, positive. If you can't pair them up, negative. So if you want to make a side note in your notes, you could write that down, just so you remember. There's one more thing that I would add to your notes, and that is this. So I'm going to write 2 different fractions. I'm going to write 27 over 14 equals to 27 over 14 equals to 27 over 14. Okay, so we can put our negative on the top, because a negative divided by a positive is a negative, we could put the negative on the bottom. Okay, positive times or divided by negative is a negative. Or you might see that negative right in the middle of them. But either way, all three of these versions of the fraction are the same. But I really prefer seeing this one. So just so you have it in your notes, these are all the same. But really, this might be the better thing. Put the negative on the top. I would put your final answer with the negative on the top, and anytime you're doing work with negatives, I think it's better to just put it on the top. But these three versions are all the same and equal to one another. Okay, so number 18. So now we're going to use all of those steps. So number 18, I've got negative 3 over 7 times 1 over negative 2 times a negative 9. Okay, so let's figure out the sign first. Step 0, figure out the sign. So 1, 2, 3. I've got 1, I've got 2, I've got 3. That's an odd number. My answer is going to be negative. Alright, so I'll just put our little final answer box. So our final answer is going to be negative. Alright, so I'm going to rewrite it as one big happy family. Oh yeah, let's put this over 1 times 1. Let's look for any common factors. So let's see, anything? No, we don't have any common factors. So I'm just going to multiply across. 3 times 1 times 9 is 27, and 7 times 2 times 1 is 14. Okay, so just in the last example where I put 27 over 14, I said we could put the negative on the top, or the bottom, or the side, but I really prefer just sticking it on the top. So don't put two negatives, because two negatives dividing makes a positive. So when your final answer, just make sure you just put 1. Alright, number 19. Alright, got 5 over 9 with a negative on the side times a half. Okay, so again, we're going to figure out the sign first. I have one negative. That means my answer is negative. So I'm going to put my final answer box and put a negative in there. I'm going to write it as one big happy family. Okay, there's nothing that I can take out from the top or the bottom, so I'm just going to multiply across 5 over 18. So our final answer is a negative 5 over 18. All right, number 20. Number 20, I have a negative 1 over negative 9 multiplied by 3 times 4 over negative 8. All right, so again, we're going to count all the negatives. I've got 1, 2, and 3. So our final answer is going to be negative. I'm going to go ahead and write our answer box. It's going to be negative. I'm going to rewrite it as one big happy family. Put that over 1. Okay, we're going to see if there's any common factors I can take out from the top and the bottom. I can see that 3 can be divided by 3 with 9, so those are a pair. I can also see that 4 and 8 can be divided by 4. So divide by 4, and I get 2. Okay, then I'm going to rewrite our new numbers. So on the top, I've got 1 times 1 times 1, and on the bottom, I've got 3 times 1 times 2. All right, so all together, on the top, 1 times 1 times 1 is going to be 1, and on the bottom, 3 times 1 times 2 is going to give me 6. So we have a negative 1/6. All right, we've got one more to do, and then we're going to stop for this video. So number 21. I've got 8 times negative 2 over negative 5 times 9 over 3. All right, so looking at the signs, I've got 2 negatives. That means my answer is going to be positive. So in my answer box, I don't really need to write anything, but I kind of like writing to the side that it's a positive answer. All right, I'm going to put this over 1 if it's a whole number. I've got 8 times 2 times 9 over 1 times 5 times 3. All right, so on the top, what I see I can divide is by 3. So dividing the 9 by 3, I get 3. Dividing the 3 by 3, I get 1. So when I rewrite this, I get 8 times 2 times 3 over 1 times 5 times 1. So altogether, 8 times 2 is 16. Times 3, I get 64. Oh, just kidding. Not 64, 48. And 1 times 5 times 1 is 5. Okay, so that's the end of this video. On the next part, we're going to do word problems, and we're going to do some division, and then do intro to addition and subtraction. GoPro, stop recording.